Hyvää päivää tai hyvää iltaa kaikille kuuntelijoille ympäri maailmaa. Tervetuloa Finlandia Foundation Nationalin puolesta Sauna-viikon 2024 ensimmäiseen tapahtumaan. On hienoa, että olette kaikki täällä keskustelemassa yhdestä suosikkiaiheistamme saunasta. God dag eller god kväll till alla lyssnare runt om i världen. På uppdrag av Finlandia Foundation National välkomna till det första evenemanget under bastuveckan 2024. Det är fantastiskt att ha alla här för att diskutera ett av våra favoritteman, bastun. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Tommy Flanagan. I'm the Executive Director of Finlandia Foundation National, and we're thrilled to be offering another year of programming all about our favorite topic, sauna, for the third year in a row. FFN has declared the last week of February National Sauna Week, and we think it's beginning to catch on. And it's no doubt, sauna has been experiencing a bit of a revival in popularity. Although sauna finds this increasing resonance around the world, it certainly has been part of Finland and Finnish society for centuries. This week, we're going to explore together sauna from a range of perspectives, views, and backgrounds. And I cannot tell you how excited we are to have these panelists, speakers, and experts from many of these perspectives this year for Sauna Week. So if you'll excuse the pun, National Sauna Week really seems to be heating up. So now I'm really excited to introduce our two speakers for this first kickoff Sauna Week event, Sauna Quest with Arne and Steve. Dr. Arne Vainio is a family practice physician in the Fond du Lac Reservation in Cloquet, Minnesota. He is a member of the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe. Arne was born to a Finnish father and Ojibwe mother in Chisholm, Minnesota. Steve Leppälä is a Yooper, a native of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. He has since been transplanted to Minnesota. Steve is retired from a career in environmental work, and Steve claims to be 110% Finnish. So we're going to be interested to hear more about that. We're very glad to have you both here. There's Steve. How's it going, Steve? Struggling with that? We caught him right in the middle of eating an orange, I think. It's good to have you both here. Maybe you want to start by telling a little bit about who you are and why are you two on a sauna quest?
Arne, go ahead and explain Sauna Quest.
So Sauna Quest is, Steve and I have been affiliated since about 2008. In that time, he sent in a cheek swab for a DNA test, and and he's 110% Finnish. And you have the paperwork for that, Steve? You can
right here. I'll get it to you. Yeah.
So anyway, we've been taking saunas since then. I grew up taking saunas, and saunas for me started when I was probably 2 or 3 years old. And my Finnish grandparents had a sauna. And that burned down when I was about 10, and we rebuilt it. And in my teens and younger years, took saunas at a friend's place, and that was a bathhouse. That was a soap and water and buckets of water, and hot water heated by the stove. And then Steve and I came to Duluth in 1997, did my residency in Seattle for family practice. I'm a family practice physician. And so Steve and I have been taking saunas most Saturdays, and we take them in the morning, and they're loaded with science and all kinds of revealing things. So Steve probably finished these. Did you swallow that orange yet, Steve?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so the idea of Sauna Quest is to visit historical or significant saunas. That's how we kind of defined it so far. And we've done several. And my sauna has even qualified, at least under some of the quote unquote stories that Arne post on Facebook as from our sauna Saturday sessions. So that's but we've traveled in many places in the US and also in Finland. And one of our ultimate goals is we did. I did do a summer sauna back in 2000 something in Finland, and then later when I went with Arne again, and we did it again at the Sauna. But our goal is to build one either at my place or his place. We decided it's going to be his place, and I told him last winter about this time is that we should set a goal to have it done and ready, right, heated by FinFest.
By FinFest of this year?
Well, that was a problem. See, I said FinFest, and I didn't specify which one. So
I see.
I'm still waiting. And we'll get to that later on in the slides, but yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe real briefly, you could talk about, you mentioned sauna, and that's what you're trying to build is a sauna, right?
Right.
So what is, I assume that most people in the audience are familiar, but I think there maybe are some people who don't know maybe what is different from a sauna to a normal sauna they might have experienced themselves. So what sort of is a sauna?
Well, I think it's a little bit more traditional. It takes about, 6 to 7 to 8 hours before from when you start heating it till you can take it. Some people have the perception that it's full of smoke when you're in there, but that's not true. The smoke is gone when you're in there enjoying it. So you start heating it, and then you heat it for like 6 or 7 hours. So the smoke is coming in the QS, but there's no chimney, and there's typically one vent hole in one of the sidewalls where the smoke escapes, but it's heating the room. And the QS has a huge mass of rocks, and that's what stores the heat. And after the fire goes out, you take out the coals, so you don't have any embers in there to get carbon monoxide poisoning. And you throw one or more dippers of water on the stones to clear the soot off of the stones and out of the room.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a special name for that I've seen in Finnish. I don't recall what it was. But then you wait another hour, and then you go in and you either bring in your benches or you wipe off the benches, and you take steam like a normal sauna. I mean, it's really hot. The stones they still got the word for it.
Oh yeah, there we have it.
Yeah.
Akalulu.
Yeah. So, but the difference is that the lulu is really smooth. It's not biting in like that. It's very smooth, and I love it. With the one that we're going to build, we're actually going to have 2 QSs in case you don't want to wait 8 hours. We're also going to have chimney QS in there. So
it's going to be a hybrid sauna sort of concept, huh? Okay.
Yeah, when we were in Finland in I think it was 2019, we were in 3 different saunas, and like Steve said, there's no chimney, so all the steam room is full of smoke when it's heating, and then you vent it out and then throw water on the rocks to steam that out, and about an hour later you can take a sauna. There are 2 that we know of in the United States, and in Finland there's 25,000 of them the last time I looked, and so they're pretty common there. And so there's one in New York that I've tried to message the guy that has it and haven't really gotten anything back. And then there's another one, but But we have been to some beautiful saunas. We've been to the Ely Steam Sauna, and that's I don't know, 75 miles from here or so. And that's been in use since 1915, and that was
Oh, wow.
originally for iron miners. And but historically significant. And we've been in every sauna that we've been in has a story, and you know, the way it was built and who built it, and whoever built it growing up taking saunas. There's one of them that we were in that is lit almost 300, you know, over 300 days a year.
Wow.
And, so we could go to that anytime.
Mhm.
And you know, and built by a bricklayer, and just beautiful brickwork.
Yeah.
Um,
When we were in Finland in 2019, we got to know some of the experts, because we met Kimmo Vainio at Sauna in Lautassaari near Helsinki. And he put us in contact with a Seppinen up in Oulu that we met on that sauna, that floating sauna. But he's the one, I think, that told us that there's two kinds of saunas, ones that have burned down and ones that will burn down.
The ones that will burn down.
Yeah, ones that have burned down already, ones that will burn down.
Yeah. Well, then
Apparently-
you know which kind you want to have then if you're
Yeah,
you had
yeah,
to choose, right?
yeah.
That's
And
great.
apparently in Finland, you can't get fire insurance on the sauna.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know for anyone trying to build in Finland. But that's amazing that you were at Suomi Sauna Seura in Helsinki. I was just there actually last week. For people who don't know, you have to sort of be a member of the Suomi Sauna Seura to go there and be invited by someone. So they have, what is it in there, Steve? They've got like 6 different sauna areas, and they're all savu saunas, aren't they?
Well, I think 3 or 4 are summer saunas.
Okay.
There's a regular wood sauna and at least one electric. We never got that far, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and we wanted the sound experience anyway.
yeah.
You know, that's primarily what we wanted.
That's fantastic. So what do you sort of qualify your saunas as, if it's historically important or, you know, that kind of thing? How do you sort of, on your list, I'm sure you have a running list of places you're trying to get to and to experience that and document, but what kind of qualifies as a historically important sauna for this quest?
Well, you know, to me, it's saunas that are, you know, that families have, and you know, they don't have to, you know, have had Teddy Roosevelt in them or anything like that. You know, one of them we've been to twice, is on an island on Lake Vermilion, and we spend a day out there, and we share a meal, and but we Joanne fires up the sauna, and Steve and I take a sauna, and I run off the dock and jump into the lake, and it's beautiful, and it's a sauna that's been in the family. There's another one. My high school counselor advised me that I wasn't college material, and in that I should go to tech school, and you know, because I can work on transmissions and things like that. And I believed him because he was my counselor. And then in the 12th grade, there was a counselor that was a fill-in counselor for a while, and he and his wife brought me to UMD, the University of Minnesota Duluth, and walked me through the college and said, you could go here. And I did, and I went through medical school based on that Tuesday drive to UMD. And this last summer, and he died maybe 10 years ago, and his wife died too. And but we used to go visit him on Christmas Eve. My wife and I would go put candles on our Finnish ancestors' graves on Christmas Eve, and we'd stop in and see Leonard and Norma and visit them. And they knew that I was appreciative of him helping me get started on this whole journey. But this summer, Leonard's daughter sent me an email and said, come and sauna in the sauna that was Leonard's. And Steve and I did that, and you know, to be in that sauna for me was it was really a spiritual experience. And, you know, that's significant. Yeah. And, you know, and just to take the disclaimers off the thing here, Steve and I are constantly working a scam to get into you know, significant saunas. The Finnish embassy in Washington, D.C. would be one of them, for instance. You know, we heard that on a Friday night at one time. Mick Jagger was in there. That's when we want to be in there. And, you know, and that's the level of the scam we're working is, you know, we want to be in those kind of saunas, but sabu saunas and, you know, sauna is, it is a spiritual thing. It is a family thing. And it's a thing that people grow up with, and it is an experience, and people, have generously shared that with Steve and I. When we were traveling through Finland, we were going to Oulu to go to the floating, the Kesan sauna, to go on the floating sauna. And somebody was following our Facebook. Mervy was following our sauna quest, and she said, "You stop in Tervetuloa, Tampere, Tervetuloa, in Tampere, and just, you know, just stop for an hour on the train and catch the next train." And she just wanted to say hi to us, and so we stopped and we got off the train, and she drove us up to her place, and she had lunch for us, and then 2 hours later we had coffee, which was like lunch again. And then
sausage.
Yeah. And then she said, "You take my place, you stay here tonight." And she had a sauna in her place.
Wow.
And so we stayed overnight at her place, and it was a Facebook thing, you know, and people were that generous. And when I first, Rauli Virtanen is the one that connected Ivy and I with our family in Finland. And when he first did a short TV segment that just exploded things for us. But we started getting emails as soon as that thing hit Finnish television. And it was just a short segment, but in there I said I wanted to, you know, we had family in Finland, but we lost track of them. And we started getting emails that were emails like, "I'm not related to you, but when you come to Finland, you stay with us." And, you know, for people to be that generous is just beautiful.
I didn't get any of those.
You didn't get any of that, did you?
Oh, no.
Well, but
okay, go on, whatever.
Well, there's something too that we have a comment already here in the chat. I experienced that similar hospitality in Finland, being welcomed into a stranger's home. And I think that Arne and Steve, you've probably experienced this as well, but sauna really offers a way to connect that's really meaningful. I mean, Arne, you've already described it as spiritual in a lot of ways. I think a lot of people agree with that. You know, and for a people, the Finnish people and sort of Finnish Americans often get described as a little bit cold. I think that's a mischaracterization, but sauna offers you a way to connect. And I think you already have some interesting experiences with that. And I want to thank you for sharing your story of going to Leonard's sauna. Arne, that's quite an amazing story. I know you guys have been to lots of saunas. I hope that we have people listening. So if you have a historic or interesting sauna that you would invite Steve and Arne to come and check it out. But I know, Steve, you prepared some slides actually with some pictures for this. So I'll go ahead and share that. I don't know if you want to walk us through that. Is that how you want to do that?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Quick.
I know there's
a lot of slides.
Right. So
this is Steve, I'll take this one. So this is during the pandemic. There was a tech school that actually the welding class was making stoves, and then to raise money for the class, they would raffle them off. Not raffle, they would go to the highest bidder. So they would auction them kind of. So they would go to the highest bidder. And and then during the pandemic, the welding program shut down and everybody was inside, and I got a hold of the instructor because I heard they had one stove left, and that's this one. And I contacted him and I said, "You just tell me what's the most anybody's ever paid for one of these things, and I'll pay that." And you can see how beautiful that is and how much rock that thing would hold. And that thing weighs 450 pounds. There's fire brick inside of it. I needed a bobcat to load that off the truck. You can't even slide that thing.
No.
And that's going to be the sauna stove, and we've been collecting rocks, and my wife and I collect rocks, and we get 4 rocks from fist-sized rocks from people that that are significant to them. And we've had when we were in Finland, we went to Porty, because that's where my grandmother was from, and we went there specifically to stay overnight, but mostly so I could pick up a stone from the ground. And I picked up a stone in Porty, and that will be the heart of the sauna.
Oh,
But
wow.
Yeah,
But-
this will be the chimney sauna and the summer sauna. And we also have the sabu stove too, which will be separate.
Wow. I love how much meaning you're able to find and to weave into your experiences here. I think that's such an important point. I mean, from the stone, right? Everything has a meaning to it and a story behind it. And that's one thing I really get from the Sauna Quest is, you know, everything comes with a past and it's in the present coming from somewhere. And I think you guys capture that really well. Let's see what else we got here then. What about this?
Okay, yeah, this is that first trip that you and Ivy and Jacob went to Finland on. I think that was in 2009, was it? Anyway, a friend of mine, I told her I want to take a summer sun. She booked this. It was like an Airbnb. It was on the farm north of Portugal, and she paid a little extra, so they heated the summer sauna first. You can go to the next slide.
Okay.
So again, they heated it all day. This is the smoke coming out of the vent in the wall. Next slide. And this is looking from the dressing room into the summer sauna part. And you can see how black the walls are.
Oh, yeah.
That's very typical too, to have just one window under the bench, under the top bench. In this picture, the doorway, the US was to the left, and then steps going up to this upper level. And then down here is where you could wash. And then the next slide. Then you walk a little ways and you kind of took this umbilical path down to it was on the edge of the potable river. So you could take a dunk in the river between rounds. So that was a nice experience. That was my first summer sauna experience, and it was wonderful. What is the next slide?
Oh, yeah, here we go.
So that was us driving to the Ely steam sauna.
Yeah. I think we stopped in Palo at the Laskianen that day.
Oh yeah.
Or this no, this one's not. This was the one up to Jim and Becky Cowboys.
Oh.
Yeah.
Cowboy. So next slide. There's a lot of slides, so we probably should.
Yeah, we'll just go through them then here.
Yeah. So this is Cowboy sauna, Jim and Becky Cowboy sauna.
And they have a Kuma stove. This Kuma is made in Tower, Minnesota, and they're really good wood stoves.
Yeah, it's a beautiful couple. They're good people.
Lots of fun. Good food too. Yeah, this was the Ely steam bath. We went there.
This was the one that you were mentioning had been open in 1915.
Yep.
Right? Okay.
It's open on Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays.
And this is it, huh?
Yeah, that's one of the, it's more like a social club. This was a men's shower or sauna. You go, there's a dressing room with lockers, and then a common shower area, and then you go into this big thing where it's kind of tiled steps and seats, and a huge
Radiator,
and you pull a cord to get the heat going. And next slide.
And this is interesting because it's the tile and wood combination. I don't know if that's very common, but and then the cinder block here that you can see, that's kind of a different construction, really.
It is. And the boilers are, so it's very, this has been running since 1950. We were sitting in there, and there was about at least the three other guys, and they were kind of talking. They see each other there, I guess, every week, and they're friends, you know, and it's more like a social club, which is neat. But then during one period when there was a quiet period, and I asked if anybody was Finnish in there, and one guy said that he was. I asked him, how long have you been coming here? And he said, 56 years. And then he said he was 56 years old. And those plastic buckets for water there that you could put your feet in. And he said when he was a little toddler, when he was a baby, he sat in one of those pails. And that's how long he'd been going there.
So the next slide. So that's in Oulu, Finland. So Steve and I came across on that raft to the Quezon Sauna, if I'm pronouncing that right. And it was actually closed. Kimmo Ratio sent a message ahead to them. They were closed, and it was for just the volunteers were being it had appreciation day, and they were all saunaing together there. And Kimmo asked if we could sauna with them, and they let us, and it was a beautiful sauna. And that water looks almost swimmable, but it's ice cold. But that was a beautiful sauna. I think the next slide shows inside, does it?
We didn't get any inside shots, so we're just walking off there.
Yeah, maybe that was top secret. But yeah, it was nice inside.
They kind of, you know, we lived up to it. We sat in there and took, I mean, it was really hot, wood fired, of course. And we kind of thought, well, these Americans aren't going to take it like we did, but we took it well. I think we made it.
We represented okay.
Yes, that's right.
I bet you did. I'm sure you made everybody quite proud. But that's great to be able to also have experienced that with employees there, right? So it was sort of a special moment where it was not open to the public then, right? So you got to sort of get an insider view into it. That's kind of,
and just more generosity, just true generosity.
Yeah,
for people that were.
Yeah, at this stop, I have a cousin that lives in Oulu that speaks just about only Finnish. We left Ivy there with her. So Ivy speaks no Finnish. My cousin speaks no English. And they sat together for a couple hours. It was just like they were Finns because they didn't talk to each other.
Well, generosity. I mean, we have one comment here in the chat from Alan Yalas, that sauna is all about love. You know, I think that sort of sums it up really well. So the theme of generosity really does keep coming up. So here we are at Sauna Seura.
Yeah, we sent a message to Rowley Vifton, and we figured that he would have connections to get us in, and he did. And that's where we met Kimmo Vainio, and I think Kimmo is the one that lights the summer saunas every morning at 5:30.
Sauna Sherpa.
Yeah, he's a sauna Sherpa is another name he goes by.
He's a good man.
Yeah. Yeah. So Ivy was there, and she was walking around with the camera, her and Garia Gettu, and they started walking towards the water, and then they realized they walked out and there was a guy sitting naked on the bench outside, so they turned around and came back. Because it was Men's Day.
Yeah, that's right. They have at Sauna Seura, some days are the Women's Day and some days are the Men's Day, right? I don't remember which ones are which, but yeah, and it's a membership group, so you have to sort of be invited in, and I think it's great to be able to go in and check it out.
Yeah, but they're talking about the membership is not based on how much money you make. It's they got different criteria to to become a member, so it's just kind of not rich place.
Yeah.
Only.
Not trying to be the boss here, but we better pick up the pace on these slides.
Yeah, we better do that, huh? Because we're gonna run out of time otherwise. So let's see here. Oh,
Yeah,
this
this was at Sauna. We went into the Baltic there, and this was Rowdy Virtanen sitting in the center.
Uh-huh.
And then on the next slide, we had another guest came with us. Yeah.
That's what you feel like if you hadn't gone to the sauna first, right?
Yeah.
What month was this again? If you were at Helsinki?
October.
October. Okay, so it was not warm anymore. That's for sure. Now that looks like a car of someone who's 110% finished potentially.
Yeah, it used to be mine, and now I sold it to another guy. So I said they'll see it around.
Yeah, so Steve bought a newer one, and so I bought that one. So when we park it, if we park together at something, it looks like the Finnish embassy showed up.
Well, I think you guys would both be great representatives, by the way.
This is a historic sauna, and Arne, you can talk about this one.
So this is Masaba Park Lake, and this was a Finnish cooperative back in the 1920s and 1930s. And my grandfather was actually influential in some of that. But the sauna is fed from the outside. It's a wood-fired sauna. You can see off to the left, there's the water tank built right on the stove. So there's hot water coming off of that, and you bring in cold lake water. And we did that in the winter. That picture before was in the snow. But my grandfather and my father both saunaed in this sauna. And they're both gone. My father died by suicide when I was 4 years old, and my grandfather died when I was 14. So any of those connections to me are also run deep, and they're meaningful.
Yeah. What a powerful location then. I mean, can't imagine what kind of experience that must be, but you know,
and to be in that sauna, you know, and you know, I mean, Steve and I tease each other, but there's no one I'd rather be in a sauna like that than with Steve.
Yeah.
The sauna, this Masaba Park was at one time kind of infamous because it was run by it was a communist society, and that's what Arnie's grandfather was. So the FBI used to sit outside and take classified numbers of anybody that drove in there. And Gus Hall grew up not far from here also. So
that's Steve.
Yeah.
And we took that in the middle of winter, so the dressing room was cold. It was a nice sauna.
We had makara, ett sauna makara and sauna pussy, or a makara pussy that we put on the stove. And it turned out really nice. And this is a big million. Arne can take this one too.
Yeah, so that's our friend Joanne. So she's holding a bar of pine tar soap that Ivy and I made. And Finns would invariably just smell that, and they would close their eyes, and that would bring them back to when they were 5 years old. But Joanne has a beautiful sauna on Lake Vermilion on an island. And that's something that we look forward to. So that's always a good summer day.
Keep going.
This is you at her sauna then?
Yes, same thing. So go to the next one.
Oh yeah.
And the next one. And the next one.
Oh yeah, there we go.
So I got my hair braided, so it takes me longer to get out of a sauna than it does Steve. He's faster at braiding.
Yeah, look at that.
This sauna was probably my favorite as far as the heat that we took. This was on it's owned by Gary and Janet Hill. It's on Raspberry Island. They own the whole island. It's on the Big Sandy Lake north of McGregor, Minnesota. and Gary has gotten log buildings from all over Minnesota, Wisconsin, and taken them apart and rebuilt them on this island. And this was a summer sauna one time that was in Minnesota. And he took it apart, brought it to the island, and reconstructed it. And it was wonderful. It was one of the best sauna experiences as far as the heat and everything else. It has 3 layers going up, 3 tiers. And this was up from the top bench, and you can see that.
You can see how high up above the stones you are.
Yeah, you can see that your feet are above the level of the sauna stove, which is one of the criteria that is suggested by sauna aficionados. But it was a wonderful sauna. And we were right up by the ceiling when we're sitting on the top bench. And Arne went in the lake there also.
Oh yeah. That's part of the experience if you're able to jump in the water, right? That you got to
Yeah, and it was after the summer season, and I had that towel wrapped around myself, and I was heading for the dock, and Gary said, "Arne, there's nobody on the lake. You don't need a towel." But it was nice to be able to just jump off the dock.
Yeah, that is fantastic.
Yeah, when I posted this picture on Facebook, and people pretended that they were offended. But then they must have, this is what I posted, but they must have zoomed in on me because they noticed the washcloth on my lap. So it's like they were offended, but yet they were trying to look for something. So whatever.
Whatever, right? There's gonna
Yeah.
be no matter what.
Well, this is actually a log sauna made out of cedar logs, which is not very common, at Dovetail Corners, owned by Auntie and Yolanda Hakala in Mackinac, Minnesota.
Wow.
And again, he found it somewhere else and took it apart and reconstructed it. And
Beautiful building.
Yeah, he heats this, like you said, about 300 days a year. And it's wonderful sauna.
He's a bricklayer, and that's some of the brickwork he does.
I'm glad I got this picture because Arne tried to put wood in the stove, and he opened the door there and burnt his hand on the handle.
Oh, yeah. Well, I know we also, I think we might have a log building expert in the audience here. I think Frank Eld might be here, so he can comment on some of these. He's probably seen this before too, but this looks like a fantastic place for sauna.
Oh, it's beautiful sauna.
Yeah, he's got lots of souvenirs though.
Oh yeah, look at that.
I mean, those axes are the kind of axes that they used to use to make the logs, to hew the logs. Yeah, it was great.
This is my grandparents' sauna. So
Wow.
they had, so this is the one that we rebuilt after it burned down. And so it's a long story, but so that burned down, and then we rebuilt it when I was about 10. And my job was to put rocks in the foundation so we wouldn't use as much cement. So that when they're pouring the foundation and the footings, they would mix concrete in a concrete mixer and then put it in a wheelbarrow and wheel it over into the forms. And then I would put sink rocks into it without touching the boards on the sides. So they would use less cement. But then that's the sauna. And Ivy and I went back there just a few years ago. So it had been 50 years since I've seen this building. And I thought it would have been burned down or gone or lost or something by then. Go to the next slide. So that's the inside, and it's all full of raccoon poop and
oh man.
But that's the sauna that replaced the one that and so I was a little kid when that sauna was built. And you can see this wall, this cement wall was there. You know, it would have blocked some of the heat probably, but it was there to protect us kids from you know, from getting burned on the stove. But you can see that even that the height of the bench that you're sitting on is relatively close to the ceiling and your feet are high up.
Yeah.
And they were serious about saunas, and they lit the sauna on Saturday nights, my grandparents. And on Wednesday nights, another neighbor lit the sauna and they would go there on Wednesday nights. But on Saturday nights, people would come over and take sauna and then go in, and my grandmother would have soup or something else and fresh bread that she made on a cast iron wood stove. And people would actually visit and have coffee, and we drink milk milk and coffee out of saucers, and and we listen to Finnish people talking.
Yeah. Wow.
But this,
Like
to
the
walk
guns.
into that a few years ago, to open that door and walk in there, and you know, all of a sudden remember all that stuff, and it just, you know, it did bring me back 60 years. You know, I mean, all of a sudden I was maybe not quite 60 years, but 50 something. But well, I was 10 years old again.
Yeah, and I mean, it is amazing, right? This a sight, smell, looking at something, how it really can transport you back to a certain memory. And I think sauna has a very specific way to do that, because you get in that mood of sort of being more in touch with maybe your thoughts and your feelings while you're also sitting there in the heat. So I think, yeah, I can imagine when you walk in there, so you're transported back to another time. So that's amazing.
Well, this is another significant. This is at Cloquet Language Village, the sauna on Little Turtle Lake. And like, you can go to the next one. Like a lot of Finnish homes, when they built Cloquet, the sauna was the first building put up there. And the kids use it in the summertime, and the adults use it in the spring and fall. It's right next to the lake. This one is a friend of mine in old Wisconsin. He built this log again, the sauna, before he built the house. And they had their first baby when they were still living in the sauna. The logs are made out of popple that he cut on his own property, and it was a great sauna.
Yeah, it's built in 1983, and you know, popple is a wood that doesn't like moisture so much, but there's a lot of heat in there when you're done. And he hasn't had any problems with it, and it's a beautiful sauna.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, different methods and, different materials, and to test those different things out and see them, that's a lot of different ways to do it.
This is my sauna. It's electric.
This is your sauna.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's electric, but I use it like 3 or 4 times a week, and so.
Okay.
And
Times a week. Huh?
Yeah, and that's where we get our stories from. And just a few months ago, I had my friend Mark raise the benches another 8 inches. So we're sitting closer to the ceiling now. So
The steam pocket is higher. It really is. It made a huge difference. 8 inches made a huge difference. So, and it's a good sauna. And so we designated Steve's a historic sauna based on the stories that come out of there. You know, the fact that Sauna Quest originated from there. And we have the authority we have the authority to do that, don't we? I think. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. We're voting ourselves authority too. So, and Steve's is a good hot sauna, and we use plenty of water on it. And there are dry saunas and different kinds of saunas. But
I do have one rock in the skewers that's from our family sauna where I grew up. You can't see it in this shot, but I grabbed the sauna before my mother moved out of that house. So I do have one of our rocks from our family sauna stove in there.
Wow. Yeah, so there's the why it's a historic sauna, right? You don't need
That's right.
Anything. There it is right there. That's great. All right, we'll go through a few more here, and then we'll see if there's any questions or comments that come up. So let's go through a few more here. Here's an explanation of some type.
Yeah, we got several books given to us when we were in Finland last time about saunas. So we're getting educated, and there's a new book that came out on saunas that's written in English by a Finnish author, and that's very informative. You can find it on Amazon, and it's a really good book.
So that's a few years ago, 3-4 years ago, I started cutting popple trees on our aspen trees. We call them popple, but started cutting those trees and peeling them. And so in the spring, in early summer, June probably, this was when the mosquitoes are the thickest. You can be out there cutting these, and then the bark just pops right off these things. They're easy to peel. If you try to peel them later in the summer, you never get it off of there. And it'll cause the logs to rot. The next slide actually has some blood on it. So if anybody has aversion, so this peeling iron right in front of the chainsaw, in front of that orange cover on the chainsaw, that's a peeling iron that someone who actually just died in the last couple of weeks gave to me for peeling these logs, and he was following our sauna progress. And that thing is sharp, and you can see that so blood coming up in the next slide here.
All right, so close your eyes if you don't like it, but here you go.
So, and so popping the bark off these things, and and this is the way Finns, my grandfather built a sauna before he built his house, and he peeled logs and cut logs and used the wood that was on his property. So these are popple trees, which are not ideal for a lot of building and from a log standpoint, but it's what's on the property. And to me, I can afford lumber, but I wanted to honor that tradition of using what you have. And they're beautiful.
Exactly. That's a story in and of itself, right? You use what you have that's available, and you make do with that. And yeah, and be careful, right? Don't cut yourself.
Yeah, there's a lesson in there somewhere.
I think the next slide is Arne's plan, his vision for the sauna.
Yeah, so it's going to be a cordwood construction. So it's going to be like stacked walls. And we have a picture that we shamelessly ripped off the internet coming up somewhere that shows how that goes. But Steve's sitting on the stove on the kiosk there. And then the benches would be in the back. And we had people give us blue bottles. We're going to use bottles in the wall in place of some of the logs. So they'll be like that.
Oh, wow.
So that's a cordwood wall. And those bottles become the lights, and people use those fish that are in there and all kinds of stuff. And but I love astronomy, and I wanted to do Orion in the southern wall, the constellation Orion in the southern wall. And Steve wants it to be blue and white bottles to represent Finland. Make an Orion out of blue and white bottles pretty well. But,
that's gonna be amazing.
That's me on jumping in, baby. December 26th in my a friend's place up somewhere. I was taking Steve with him anyway. And that's the last of the show.
Well, we made it. Well, thank you both so much. I wonder if I'm gonna quick look through the notes here, the chats, and see if there's anything that come out. Some Frank L said he was jealous having not been there at that wood construction that we were looking at. So there's another one for him to put on the list. Let's see. I think you've gotten some invitations in here to go check out some different sauna as well.
Sweet.
Hopefully you're taking note of that. Here, I'll try to find where that was. We have a floating sauna converted houseboat. That was probably inspired by the Oulu picture that we saw, right? Polar plunge in Monaga, Minnesota. Any sauna enthusiast would certainly be welcome to visit us. That was from Jim Julio. Oh, Alan had been to the Ely steam sauna 3 weeks ago. So, backing up what you said about that. here's a question that just came in from Nancy. Based on all of your experiences, anything that surprised you about sauna etiquette in Finland that you weren't expecting?
Well, I remember at Sauna, they told us that when you're leaving, you ask the people that are still in there if they want the throne. You ask them first, and then if they say yes, then you put the cuisses are kind of a cover on them, so you lift the cover off and you put the water in. Yeah,
Yeah, that was nice.
we never heard that etiquette. It was kind of nice.
So I wanted to show something briefly here. So this is low tech, and I'm just going to hold a picture up to the screen. But I don't know if you can see it. This is this is my grandfather. So my grandpa Vainio, my Nestor Vainio, and so he was young, and you can see, you know, playful. And this is a cool photo, and I never knew him like that. The way I knew my grandfather was he was always old, and that's my grandmother. My grandmother was Love. That's my sister Sherry, but that's my grandfather, and he died when he was 96, I think. But he was the typical angry old Finnish man, and he sat me on his lap one time and made me promise that I wouldn't buy a bar. So my dad's suicide was based on a bad bar business, but you know, Steve and I have been in the sauna many times, and one of the things that he talks about sometimes is the Finn that was so extroverted that he looked at the other guy's shoes instead of looking at his own shoes, and another man that loved his wife so much that he almost told her. And you know, and I want to, you know, if I get on a soapbox, it's always the same thing. Alan mentioned love, and people don't talk about love. And you know, I'm a doctor, and in medicine, people don't talk about love. I'm Ojibwe, and last night we had a Ojibwe storytelling gala. People dressed up, and there are a lot of people, and people were telling stories in Ojibwe. But Ojibwe people understand love is medicine, and that life is ceremony. And life in the sauna for me, even when I'm finishing in the sauna, that is ceremony, and it's medicine. And love is important. And if you are one of those Finnish people that can't seem to say I love you, and you know, say it. You know, if you're sitting next to someone that's been with you for years and years, you know, turn to them and say it. Mina rakastan sinua, you know, I love you. Gazaga in Ojibwe, I love you. In English, I love you. You know, it's important. It's why we're here. You know, sauna is just the icing on the cake. And but the reason we're here is from an Ojibwe standpoint, we're on a spiritual journey, and this is a short physical experience that we have to make ourselves better and to interact with other spirits and make them better. And that's what we're doing. Steve makes my spirit better. And we do that for each other, and we should do that for each other tonight. And I am so appreciative, Tommy, of us being able to kick off Sauna Week. And,
we do want to get, for fun, we want to get to the sauna at the embassy. So we're
on you for staying on target there, Steve.
That's
staying
right.
on message. We're working a scam.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, I just want to thank you both, and Arne. I mean, everything you said right now, I just felt like it's a great way to kick off Sauna Week. It's a great way to end a Sunday to really remember the piece about love. And you know, I think I speak for everyone when, you know, I say if I had a relationship with my doctor or with medicine where love was at the center of it, I think things would look a lot differently. And you know, I think you said some really motivational and inspiring things there. And I look forward to hearing more from you guys, and maybe from a live stream from the sauna in Washington, D.C. potentially, but we'll see what we can do. But I want to thank you both so much. I feel like we just scratched the surface, but this has been a fantastic kickoff. to what's going to be a whole week of sauna. I hope to see you both in the audience maybe somewhere, and I hope to see you both in person as well soon. So thank you everybody very much. One more surprise coming at you. I'm going to share our sauna theme song for this year, which will be playing throughout the week. So if you give me about a couple seconds here, I'll pull that up and you can enjoy it as you're exiting. And then at the end of that, we'll call this program done for the night. All right, enjoy the sauna song.
If you wanna make friends in Finland, you gotta put on your birthday suit and let your hair down, cause we don't play around. We've been chilling in the heat, listening to the sound of the kiuas. So throw in some löylyä lisää. Tervetuloa saunaan sisään. Get your butt on the seat. Keep it listening.
Please let me show you how my Finnish heart rings. This is my nature, just hear the kiuas sing. In the sound there's no ego, we're all the same. If it feels too hot for you, don't be afraid. So join me, drop your clothes and grab the löylykoha. In our sauna, find your peace, find your rauha. In the sauna, in the sauna, in the sauna.
Let's go through the sauna basics, let's face it, it sounds kinda crazy. Kiuas, we throw water on the rocks. It can be electric or heated with some logs. Löyly, that's the steam coming up, that's the spirit of sauna.
Did you mean sauna?
Yeah, well, call it what you want. Vastu,
Hammam, Korean spa.
Please let me show you how my Finnish heart rings. This is my nature, just hear the kiuas sing. In a sauna there's no ego, we're all the same. If it gets too hot for you, don't be afraid. So join me, drop your clothes and grab the löylykoha. In our sauna, find your peace, find your rauha. In the sauna, in the sauna, in the
As we sit
sauna.
in the heat and you're sitting next to me, we're gonna keep it real, say it like it is. Finns take a sauna almost every day. There are no rules, just do your way.
Please let me show you how my Finnish heart rings. This is my nature, just hear the kiuas sing. In a sauna there's no ego, we're all the same. If it gets too hot for you, don't be afraid. In a sauna,